bit dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz in the house. That's right, Miss Liz is here. And today we only have one show. We are rescheduling tonight's evening show because life does happen, and we'll get that out to you as soon as I can. I'm working with the publicist for that one. But today we have the incredible Tracy Doyle in, and we're going to be talking about life storms. And I think it's just a perfect timing to talk about life storms with some of you guys that know what's going on with Miss Liz. But hey, today's going to be an incredible tea time. So before we get started, we're going to get you guys over to all those platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow them, subscribe, and get these tea times out there. Also, jump over to all the podcast apps, Podbeans, Spotify, Listen Notes, and over to babyboomers.org because they are partnered with Miss Liz. And you can find some incredible other podcasters over there if you're looking to be on other shows. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro, and then we're going to get Tracy in here. But today's tea that we're serving is transformation. Learn to break old patterns, empowerment, reclaim your voice, your time, and your worth, and emotional clarity. Respond with awareness. And we're going to be talking about her book as well called Life Storms. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decisions and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where we speak honestly about the storms life brings and the strength it takes to find our way through them. Today's guest is someone who knows what it means to appear successful on the outside while quietly struggling on the inside. She turned that journey into a mission to help others heal, reconnect, and rediscover themselves. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Doyle, author, entrepreneur, emotional wellness advocate, and creator of the Aurora Method. Tracy's story is one of transformation and resilience, raised in a life marked by instability, trauma, addictions, and emotional hardship. She became the first in her family to graduate college, later building a multi-million-dollar medical communication company and becoming an award-winning leader recognized by Ford, Entrepreneur, and Inc. Yet behind the accomplishments and recognition, Tracy was battling emotional burnout, disconnect, and storms she didn't yet understand how to calm. That's breaking point became the beginning of her healing journey, leading her to create the Aurora Method, a framework blending neuroscience, mindfulness, psychology, and self-awareness to help women break old patterns, reclaim their voices, and respond to life with emotional clarity. Her tea reflects that mission beautifully. Transformation, breaking old patterns, empowerment, reclaiming your voice, time, and worth, emotional clarity, responding with awareness. So grab your cup and lean in. Today's tea time is about healing, resilience, and learning that no matter how heavy the storm feels, clear skies are still possible. Let me get Tracy in here and let's spill some tea. Welcome,
Hey.
Tracy.
Hey, thank you, Miss Liz. I'm so thrilled to be here.
It is an honor to have you here. And it just seems like the universe is working with me again. Perfect timing. So, Tracy, let's get to know you a little bit before we get into your book and what the Aurora Method is all about. Tell us who you were as a little girl and who you are now.
Yeah, so as a little girl, I would say I was a caretaker. I grew up, my mom, back then, no one really had the diagnosis for bipolar disorder. So my mom was mentally ill and she had me as a teenager. And she, grew up, she was the oldest of 9 children. So when I was born, my grandmother was only in her 40s with 9 kids. And so I sort of rolled into being a member of the family as one of 10. But my mom married when I was 7. And so that journey from the big Irish Catholic alcoholic family, where everyone drank, it just seemed like, people drank, people fought, it seemed predictable to me. But there were things happening there that were not as predictable. I endured sadly sometimes in a home that's riddled with addiction. Sometimes there's sexual abuse, and sadly, that was my experience as a young child. And when I was 7, my mom married an alcoholic, and sadly for us, he was hitting his bottom as we came into his life. And so they had 2 children together. And by the age of 10, I became a full-time caretaker. My mom, she was shutting down, not knowing how to handle everything that addiction had taken from us, which was food, running water, heat. We were living in squalor. So, I was the one who stepped up. She didn't have food to cook for us. So I would raise kids on the schoolyard and, try to win lunch, and I'd bring it home for myself and for the kids, the young kids. And so basically that's sort of, my childhood. It was more, taking care of my mom, taking care of my siblings, trying to quell them when they were just crying because they were starving. And by the time I was 11, my stepfather passed away. It was very tragic, his death. And it was, in my mind, his bottom took him to that death. And then I moved back in with my grandparents. And then I really just said to myself, I don't ever want to go back to that. And I started really focusing on achievement. Taking care of the kids was one thing, but now my thought was, school was my respite during those 4 traumatic years with my stepfather. And then I really became one person who was just laser focused on doing well. And I did. I was the first in my family to go to school, to go to college. And that's really where the journey began.
And who are you today, Tracy?
So today, I'm a resilience coach, an award-winning author. My book recently just received the Book Fest Award. I placed second in 3 categories. Basically psychology and self-help and improving mindset and communication, and business leadership, including psychology mindset, and just women in business in general for leadership. But who I am now is someone who built, as you heard in my accolades, built a business. But today what I'm doing is I'm sharing the wisdom that I gained on the journey of overcoming burnout and helping people break through the unconscious patterns that keep them stuck in burnout and keep them stuck in relationship conflict. Because let's face it, burnout doesn't just burn us, it burns our relationships too.
Absolutely. And that's something we don't really talk about, right? Is the burnout in the relationship when we're burning ourselves out.
Exactly.
So Tracy, Absolutely. So Tracy, I got a couple questions that are coming in, and I also want to bring up the book because I want to get to understand the cover of the book, because for me it speaks volumes. Colors is amazing with me. So let's bring up the book first. Let's talk about a little bit about the book, why you wrote the book, and what inspired you to write the book, and then we'll get into a little bit more of your story.
Yeah. So the reason I wrote the book was so my sister is like my mom, and about 5 years ago during COVID, my niece, then 14 years old, became the caretaker for her mom. And I would bring my niece up to where I live in New Jersey from South Carolina, and I would bring her to here. We would go to the beach. We went to the beach. I happened to talk to her about her schooling and what she was hoping to achieve and what did she need support in. And she actually said, my mom. And so I made a decision to not leave my spouse, but leave my home here in New Jersey, leave everything intact. My spouse stayed here, and I moved to South Carolina so I can provide an environment for my niece. Now, what I wasn't anticipating with that decision was some of my old triggers being reignited. I felt myself, burnout, starts out looking like stress, feeling like overwhelm, but then ultimately it leads to conflict. And when we're triggered, the conflicts start to really get out of hand. And I was starting to feel like, oh no, I'm in conflict again. And I was getting reactive. We get very, very reactive when we're starting to feel burned out again. And in that moment, I said to myself, oh no, girl, we are not going back. We're not doing this. So what can we do? That's one of the things I've learned. And I'll get to the cover in a minute, because that's the clear sky is that opening in the storm and finding that clarity. And in that moment, I said, you know what? I can pour my heart out and I can share my experience with others. And if I do that, maybe I'll help someone. And I've learned over the years, when I'm stuck in that storm, if I reach out to help someone else, I actually feel good about me and I can break myself through that. So I did. I took this as a project. I worked on it every day. It helped me stay focused while I was helping my family. And the aim of it was really to just help women who were struggling, feeling overwhelmed and burned out, and in that conflict, have a way to get out of it. Because what I shared was everything that I had learned to get out of it, which I now call the Aurora Method. So the colors are really all about hope. The storm clouds are not meant to be scary. They're meant to be, there's hope breaking through that storm. And that clear blue dot in the middle, if you will, not that there's still clouds in there, but that when we gain clarity in the middle of our burnout, we have the ability to break through just about anything that's holding us back. It's never too late to, start over, in my mind. And I named the Aurora Method Aurora because as I was writing the book, I was just sharing my practices as I was collaborating with a development editor. He said, well, what do you call it? And I'm like, I don't know. I have to think about that. So I started thinking about it and I'm like, well, what does it do? Right? Well, it helps you start over at any given point, so no matter what storm you're in, no matter what's happening in your life, you can start over and you're never too burned out to not burn out, right? You can change it. So I named it Aurora for the Roman goddess of dawn, because it's new day, new beginning, which is why behind the cloud, the orange is really to demonstrate that hope and that new day, and that new beginning.
I love it because the colors actually speak really loud, right? When we're going through so much in our life that it gets cloudy sometimes and it overwhelming. And the colors kind of just break through and kind of soften it up over here in the little corner. And then in this corner, it gets a little harder. And then this corner, a little lighter. And that's kind of what I got from the cover of your book, was the different corners, different stages in life, right? Where the storm is affecting us.
It's everywhere.
Well, Tracy, we have a couple of questions coming into the studio. I'd like to get those out to you. And the first one I want to get out to you is, how did you recognize your burnout?
Yeah, so that's a long, sort of a long story, but let me give you the shorter version of it if I can. So burnout for me started feeling like stress, right? And, and I have to succeed. I have to do well. I have to earn money. I have responsibilities. And as life went on, and my responsibilities started to increase, I started to feel overwhelmed. I had the big job. I had, I now had custody of my sister's kids. I was caretaking my mother still. Meanwhile, I'm trying to have my own relationship in my own life. And then the overwhelm started. But here's the first signal for burnout. I started believing that no one helped me. And I started having conflicts. I wasn't recognizing it yet, though. So I want to share this because burnout took me to a breaking point. So I'm going to share what the signals were now that I know them. I started feeling in conflict at work. I was thinking, no one cared, no one supported me. I had to do everything myself. If I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done right. And I felt like I was at odds, right? At home, it was like this. I, managed 52 things with my family, all 52 things at work. I walk in and it's like, hey, did you remember to pick up the steak for dinner? And it was like a complete meltdown. Like, what? Like you couldn't pick up the steak, right? And, and so burnout starts to look reactive. And so what I call that is explosion. But don't think burnout is just explosion. It's implosion, right? So leading up to the explosion was the implosion where I was shutting down on the inside. I was mentally divorcing my spouse. I was like, I couldn't even, I sit in the room, but I wasn't present because I was freaking out over the 67 things in my mind that I had to do. I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel close. I couldn't sleep. And so they talk all about nervous system. For me, these clear signs are we're imploding, we're shutting down, we're isolating socially, we're just too busy for everybody. We're cutting ourselves off there because we can't deal with it. And then ultimately what starts to happen is the explosion. It's not to say everyone explodes, but it's reactivity. We just get very, very reactive, feeling misunderstood, unheard, and it's just conflict after conflict. As I started hitting that point, the breaking point, and here's where I don't want anyone to go to, but I just kept pushing through because I just thought, you know what? It's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep doing everything for everybody. And I'm going to manage it all. I can handle it. I can handle it. Because from the outside, everyone looked at me as I was handling it effortlessly. And I kept telling everyone I was fine. So no one really checks on the woman who says she's fine because she looks fine and she acts fine and she's handling everything. Yeah, she might be a little reactive, but she's doing it all and I can count on her. Well, this is where burnout took me. It's a little emotional. So here I was. It was December 21st. It was around Christmas. It was 1999. It was a cold, gray winter's day. And as I'm getting ready for work, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror, right? I'm walking by and my eyes were hollow. My spirit was dim. And for a minute, I didn't even recognize myself because I just looked so empty. My eyes just looked like two stones looking back at me. And inside my head in that moment, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done being responsible for my mom. I'm done taking care of my sister's kids. I'm done being stretched in every single direction at work. I'm done being the fixer. I'm done. And then I thought, if I just got good and drunk, maybe I would crash the car. And if I crash the car, no one will know that I did it on purpose. I didn't want anyone to think I was weak. And later that night, I had gone through with that. And I was jolted awake by someone knocking on the car window, screaming, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I sit up and I'm like, what have I done? What have I done? My car was facing oncoming traffic. I was a hair away from a head-on collision. And I can't even tell you the shame. And that next day, I had to go to a school meeting. And I'm walking to a school meeting because, of course, I lost my car. And I'm crying in the car, by the way, like, it's my mother, I can't handle anymore. And, and they felt sorry for me, but I'm walking to the school meeting. It's like my head and my heart were fighting. My head was like, Tracy, how could you do this? But my heart's going, Tracy, you're still here. And that was it. I just yelled out to God, I just want to live again. And it just came to me like it was my first real lesson, which was, I grew up believing I had to sacrifice myself for everybody, my family, my job, everyone. And in that moment, it was like, sacrifice doesn't mean you have to abandon yourself. It means putting yourself first while you're managing everything for everybody. Mm-hmm. So for me, that meant getting help. And that's when I went on the journey of understanding what burnout is, what it looks like, what it takes to change it. And what I've realized, though, in that moment was not in that moment, in that time, it felt like 10 years because it was a lot that I had to really digest. I was treated for depression. I had to work through my trauma. But burnout symptoms kept coming back. And so I learned over time that it wasn't my mom. It wasn't being responsible for the kids. It wasn't my job. It was me. It was my beliefs that basically drove me to sacrificing myself because, you see, I thought I never belonged. And, and I thought if I did 110% and I did everything for everyone, then maybe I would. And so I had to learn how to reshape what shaped me. And when I did, that's when I found my way back to myself, to my voice, because I had shut that down because I was just doing it. I was human doing, yeah. To my life, right. And to the people who I love. And I always say that because I was so distant from them, but that's when I found my purpose, honestly, because I understood now it's not an easy thing to overcome and you need someone to guide you through it.
Tracy, did you ever feel like you were there, but you weren't there?
Yes. I felt, when I say mentally divorced, it was like I'm sitting with my partner, we're watching TV, but I'm gone. Like I am not even in the room. I mean, like my head is like, I got this and that, and that, and there was no closeness because I just felt like I had an invisible wall, because I had so much on my mind and I wasn't letting anyone in. Because you see, I thought vulnerability meant weakness. And then when I finally realized vulnerability is strength, things changed.
Tracy, do you feel that because of your childhood that you felt that you had to take care of everybody? Like,
that's such a great question, because what I've come to learn from all this was, and it was a dear friend of mine. She's the first person I was vulnerable with. And what she said to me is Tracy, it's your thinking, and of course I'm like, no, it's not. But she said to me, Tracy, do you realize your life experiences shape your thinking? And at some level, we're all wounded, and how we internalize that shapes us. So that was an interesting idea, and of course I wanted to make it all about, yes, the idea was, having to caretake my mom, but I wanted to blame it on that. It's because of that. No, it was because of what I internalized during that experience, which is if I don't show up and if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. My mom couldn't handle it. It wasn't her fault. She couldn't handle it, but I took it upon myself to do it. And so, when I think about some of the beliefs that were shaped from some of those early life experiences that I had, what I ultimately learned from all the work that I did was they distorted how I thought, how I felt, and of course, how I related to other people. And that's what I had to unpack. And that's basically what the Aurora Method helps us do, because what they tell you is, I was in the pharmaceutical industry for almost 30 years. So I was all about medical and I wanted to understand everything. What they tell you when you go to the literature in PubMed, right? It's where I go, is the number one treatment for burnout is change your outlook and attitude on life. And when you're in the midst of that, it's like, how do I do that?
Right?
Right?
That kind of just irritates me more, right?
How? Like, what do I do? No one tells you how. So when I opened up to my friend and she was like, it's your thinking. I'm like, well, how, like, okay, but don't tell me it's me. Like, how do I change it? And so she showed me some tools that she had learned. She was actually in a 12-step program. There's many 12-step programs I do want to add. Everyone always thinks I'm speaking about alcoholics, but they all of the 12-step programs use the book from Alcoholics Anonymous. And she showed me this tool. And what it was how she said, let me show you how your life experience shape your thinking. So she has me do this self-assessment tool. But what I saw, I studied psychology. I'm like, oh, like this is Abraham Maslow. This is showing me what happens when my needs are stunted. This is really cool. Then she wants me to look at like, what fear did it create? What belief was shaped? And, and then I'm like, wow, look what I do in the presence of fear. This is crazy. And then I got to see some more things and wow, then I realized, out here is what I thought the trigger was, right? I'm thinking they want all this from me, right? And I'm thinking they're triggering me. And here's my reaction. This is what I'm doing. Well, that work that she taught me helped me understand that the storm is in here. I have to uncover. So the work of Carl Jung, I have to uncover the unconscious belief that was shaped by an early wound. And so the word resentment, she taught me too. She said, the word resentment means to refeel. What are you refeeling? It was the wound. And it awakened the belief that the wound created. And in the presence of that belief, I acted. That's all I did. I acted on everything that happened. So the fear would get triggered, right? So if I didn't fight those kids on the schoolyard, we weren't going to eat. I was afraid we weren't going to eat. So I could see now how that belief of I have to do everything led to I'm going to lose, we're never going to have food and I'm going to lose my family. We're all going to die, right? Pushed me to I got to do it, right? And then it played out over every single aspect of my life. I mean, it was amazing when I actually saw it. And then what I saw was my stepdad's mom treated me poorly, right? Because, I was born out of wedlock. I thought I belonged to my mom's big tribe of people up until I was 7. And then all of a sudden, his mom is treating me poorly. Like she was calling me names. Like she called me a bastard. And, I'm 7 years and 8 years old. I don't know what that means. She made me sit on the floor and eat because bastards aren't allowed to sit at the dinner table. And she wasn't doing this in front of my mom or my stepdad, but only when I was, there and she was caring for us. And I couldn't make sense of that. But ultimately, I was book smart. I look up the word in the dictionary, female dog. She's calling me a dog. Why am I a dog? Like she's treating me like a dog. Why? And then it hit me, because she was saying some negative things about my mom. And then it hit me. She doesn't like me. I don't belong here. And then I started going into, he's not my dad, and that family I was with, that's my mom's family. They're not mine. So here I am, I'm 8 years old. What was the belief I formed? I don't belong. Right. So I could see like now if I sacrifice myself and do everything, then maybe I will. Can you see how it all shaped? It's amazing when you see it. And it drove me to burnout, drove me almost to taking my own life.
And that's people just think burnout is like you're just doing like until you just want to exhaust yourself, but there's so much behind it that people don't understand the burnout. They don't understand the reaction, right? And it's like you said about the steak. Could you not just go and get the steak? Like I'm doing all of this, and then they're looking at you like, oh, I just wanted to know if you got the steak.
Exactly. Because when our thoughts, because Miss Liz, when our thoughts are distorted, like I said, it distorts how we think, how we feel, how we relate. So when we have that reaction, it's disproportionate to the question. It's disproportionate to what's happening. So that disproportionate reaction, to me, that is the signal. Burnout, right there. Overwhelm happens. We all get overwhelmed. But how do you know it's burnout? When you're finding yourself in these reactions that you're like, why did I just yell? Right? I mean, I would be like, why? Like, what is wrong with me? And as women in particular, what do? It's got to be my hormones. I'm hormonal, right? No,
right away, that's where we go.
That's right where we go. We want to take it out there. It's something else. It's not me, right? So that's what we do. And so, so those reactions happen. And that to me, that's and what I call the conflict cycle. Then we're in conflict because it's like the stake, right? You can't do it. And then you're getting into the fight, and then what does he say? Oh, come on. Like, you said you were going to do it. And then what do you say? Yeah, but don't you see how much I do? You don't care about me. Oh my God. Now you're going to make it about me not caring about you. I mean, think about what happens. And then what happens? We shut down, we implode, right? And we keep perpetuating isolation. So we are creating all this, and like we're creating a little tornado. We don't even know it. We can't see it. I love the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you ever read it. He talks about this term. It's a Toltec term called mitote. And essentially what it means is self-centeredness, right? And what he's trying to say is we're enshrouded by fog. And when we're enshrouded by fog, so I take the thought distortions as that, right? We're stuck in these traits, these negative traits, negative thoughts, and these traits that are developed from all this stuff. And we don't see how it affects them. And we think we're giving, but we really can't receive, right? And so we're stuck in this loop. And so learning how to break through that is what builds the bridge back to connection, is what I've learned.
So Tracy, we have a question here about the Aurora Method. What inspired you to create the Aurora Method?
What I said before, you want to tell me how to change my attitude, and you're not going to tell me how to do that. So I was very reactive. I grew my career, as you heard. I started a business. I became, award-winning entrepreneur, etc. But here I am, the CEO, and I'm still reacting at work. I'm not handling the pressure well, and I'm people are on eggshells around me. They're scared, right? Because I'm freaking out. Now, and it's not to say I was freaking out every day, but when I would have a reaction, like it would have these reverberating effects in the organization. Oh, boy, I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible CEO. Then I start beating myself up. Then I come home and I want to be understood, and I'm not understood, and oh no, right? And I can't seem to break the conflict. Like, oh my God, I'm reacting. Oh my God, what is wrong with me? How do I stop this? So my friend had showed me how my life experiences had shaped my thinking. The next part of my journey was, okay, what do I do with that? How do I work with that? And, as I started reading more about, shifting your attitude and outlook, it always takes us to mindset. And then people give you things to say, I'm enough, I'm worthy. But that didn't work for me. What was happening for me was it felt like, the way like Teflon is, you put the oil in on the pan and it just slides right off, and it wasn't sticking.
Kind of like imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like I could, like this stuff wasn't working for me. But I read this book, and it's a spiritual book, and it's called Discover the Power Within You. And the book is by Eric Butterworth. And what he does is he breaks down the Sermon on the Mount in a way that helps you understand affirmations. And I never understood affirmations. I grew up in the era of Saturday Night Live, so I would make fun of them, because they would say I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. And so what Butterworth does is shows you how to really open your mind and your consciousness. And so from the work that I did with the self-assessment, I realized I needed to go deeper with naming my self-centered traits. I understood my fear. And so if I'm afraid of loss, if I'm afraid of losing something, what can I fill myself with? I can fill myself with trust that everything's going to be safe and okay. If I'm afraid of never getting something, what can I fill myself with? I can again fill myself with trust that things will work out, and things will change. So I started that, but then what I saw was if I name the self-centered traits like pity. So let me just unpack that. When people say you're self-centered or selfish, every person I know balks, especially burned out women, because we say, are you kidding me? I'm selfless. Don't you dare tell me I'm self-centered. I think of everybody. But what I learned is that it's the trait that we're absorbed with. So go back to the awakened belief. It tells us we're not good enough, we're not worthy. It shoots our fear our fear shoots up in between our ears. And we might then say, no one will ever understand me. And we're filled with self-pity. Pity is the ish part of self-ish or self-center, right? We're absorbed with that. I was absorbed with self-reliance. As a child, self-reliance is a wonderful trait. I became independent, but as a CEO, self-reliance became, I have to do everything myself. What's the message I'm sending you? I don't trust you. I don't think you're good enough. I'm doing it myself. So I started naming those traits, and I started to see how they created the conflict. Because like Ruiz says, I wasn't the metote. I wasn't seeing the impact of these traits that I developed on others. So that's what motivated me. It's like, okay, that self-assessment that my friend taught me then took me to, how do you gain clarity? How do you see it? How do you name it? And then it took me to, how do I change it? Which is basically the third part of the Aurora Method, which for me and for anyone who does it, creating your own personalized mindfulness. So in other words, how do you remove your fear? How do you replace that ish is what I call it today. And when you do, you create your own affirmation and your own manifestation statement. And then there's so many tools you can use. I mean, I always I write them down, but there's apps now. There's the Parrot app. You can put it in and you can listen to it and constantly rewire the things that come up. And basically the way that we develop them is when we're in the storm, right? Because when we're in it and we do the work, we can go right to, what am I afraid of? What am I feeling? And what are my issues? So I see them, I name them. How do I change them? And we write our statement, and then we keep mantra. It's our mantra to redirect that negative thinking. So that's what motivated me to do it. I wanted to know how to change. And when I tell you, like I said, that journey was like 10 years, because I kept reacting and reacting, and I felt so much shame. And I kept feeling so distant and isolated from the people that I love. I was like, no, I have to figure out a way back to everybody. And that's what it was for me.
Absolutely. We have a comment here that I just want to quickly answer. Ms. Liz, what inspired today's powerful conversation? What inspired this conversation today with Tracy is there is so much burnout there that we do not understand. Success burnouts, relationship burnouts. There's so many burnouts, different types of and categories of burnouts that we're not talking about. And Tracy's story really resonated with me. So that's why Tracy is here today sharing her story. We have another question here for you, Tracy. It is, what does creating clear skies mean to you personally?
It means clarity. So as I was saying, when I was in that reactive state, what I ultimately learned was that I was having like fear-based reactions, and I was stuck in those self-centered traits, and they were distorting everything. So having the clarity to know how to handle it different is what clear skies means to me.
And a lot of us look up to the skies, right? When we're going through a hard time. And we talk to the skies, right? Because we think the higher power is up there, but
Exactly.
He's actually inside us. But we always look up, right? When we're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself looking up a lot, Tracy?
I do. I mean, I love the sky. If you saw my phone, I have so many pictures of skies. And when I wrote the book, I was in South Carolina, and so I made an investment in building a sunroom outside of the house that I was living in with my sister, and it had beautiful big sky. And I would sit out there and I'd write the book, and I'd look at the sky and I'd reflect. The sky to me gives me the greatest inspiration, because it gives us so much. It gives us clarity. It helps us see the storm, right? It helps us see the blocks, like in terms of the clouds. And when the clouds break, it's like, ooh, I don't know about you, but I always see things in those clouds.
I do too. I see animals and I see people.
I see
and then
birds, I see angels. I mean, I see everything. And I'm like, okay, my answer's always in the sky.
I see a lot of animals, and I'm just like, what are you guys doing up there? Like, what are you playing around? Like, Tracy, we have a question here from Russ. It's, what daily habits helped you most in your healing journey?
Yeah, what I teach in the Aurora Method is it's called the 5-minute end of day reflection. So as I was working through understanding how to create my own, personalized mindfulness affirmations, I wanted to really, I found myself at the end of the day asking myself, how did I do? Right? Did I react? Did I get frustrated? Did I get angry? Do I owe anyone an apology? And if I said yes, I would review it. And then I'd go through the process of what was I afraid of? What was my issues? And I would name it, create a new manifestation statement. The next morning, 5 minutes, I call it 5 minutes of morning intention. And I still do this. And I take that manifestation from the night before, and I start my day with deep breaths. I start my day with gratitude. And then I manifest my change. And what I find for me is that 5 minutes just sets my entire day. The other habit that I love, I call it the 1 minute reset. So when you know how to create you can quickly go through the process of creating your affirmation. What I do is, if I'm in the midst of something and I get, a trigger or I call it churn on the inside, 1 minute, I do some breaths, but what I'm breathing in, whatever I'm breathing in centeredness and calm, and I'm breathing out the fear, right? I'm breathing in, sometimes I'm just breathing in kindness and understanding, and I'm breathing out, my ish, which is oftentimes self-righteousness, because I want you to listen to me and do what I say. So, I'm basically breathing in and out. And like I said, once you see it and name it, there's so many ways to change it. Those are my 3 favorites.
Tracy, I noticed as you were saying that releasing in and out, you were doing this with your hand. Do you do that?
I do. When I'm sitting, I do it. I personally like walking meditation. So sometimes if I'm feeling, especially some of the responsibilities that I have with my family can still trigger me. So I will take a walk, and I'm pretty much doing the affirmation as I'm walking. So the rhythm is still there, but the hand motion isn't. So
I like it because you're in and out, right? It's kind of like, there was an exercise I did years ago in therapy where it was release the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget how we did the exercise, and then we had the string where our boundaries, right? How close people could get to us before we would snap, because I went to anger management like 4 times and I'm still angry.
But method, it'll help.
But the triggers, right? We get triggered sometimes with the littlest things where we think we're over that, and then a trigger comes back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Tracy, how do you handle when triggers come back?
Well, as I said, it's the wound, right? So I'm refeeling. If you go back to what I said before with Maslow, it's one of the needs feel threatened, right? So is it my security? Is it my safety? Is it my belonging? Is it my aspirations for what I want for myself? It's one of those, right? And so once I can understand that, then I'll ask myself, what fear was just ignited, because fear if I'm not aware of the belief yet, I know I'm triggered. What fear was just ignited? And, and once and it's simple. Tony Robbins simplifies it, and I love his work. Loss, less, never, right? Am I afraid of losing something? Yep. Or no. Am I afraid of never getting something? Yep. Or no, right? So for me, my 2 biggest fears are loss and never. So then it's observing, what do I do in the presence of that fear? And, and for me, I joke, I become Bam Bam. So if you have anger management, it's your Bam Bam from the Flintstones. So I get like, Bam Bam, I want everything the way I want it. And so basically it's understanding, from that perspective, okay, I'm afraid of losing something. So again, I'm filling myself with trust that everything's going to be okay. My house is still here. I'm not losing anything. My husband's still here, whatever it is, and then basically then I'm releasing my anger, and I'm breathing in calm. I'm centered and I'm calm. I'm centered and I'm calm. And I always end it with, and I'm handling it. I'm centered and I'm calm and I'm handling it. And that's how I had to work through my anger. I mean, everyone thought I had an anger problem. It was really it was a wound that was there. And it was really the refeel of the threat. It was my safety, and it was my financial security. And when I'm in a financial fear situation, I'm like Bam Bam times 20, especially when I owned a business. And I had to learn that was just not effective. Dial that back, Tracy. And anger management stuff didn't work. Like counting from 10 to 1, I was 0 to 60 in a nanosecond.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Here's the reaction, or here's the trigger, here's the reaction. What's in here? And so when I was able to do that 30-second pause of what's the fear, right? What's threatened, right? What's the fear? 2 quick questions. You can breathe your way through that, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, okay. And then you can reset it, right? It's the 1-minute reset. It's really powerful, but you have to do some work to uncover some of your things to even be able to answer those questions. So I don't want to make it sound like it's not doable, but you can do it by saying, various things to yourself, like what's one thing that limits me, and you can create an affirmation that way. You can, but for us who are exploders, and for us who are imploders, we don't want to go back there, and we want connection, right? We want to feel centered and calm. So this work really does help.
Yeah, for me, they just kept telling me I was the bottler. I just bottle, and then I just explode. And It could be the stupidest thing that'll make me blow up. And I'm just like, why am I blowing up on that? Why couldn't I blow up on the other thing, right? Then you start questioning everything that's going on, and you're just like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, that's all it is. And when you see it, it's like I just did a group cohort, and I always ask people, what's one word that describes the benefit? And what they keep saying, what comes up consistently, powerful. Because they cannot believe what they see, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was there. And I didn't even realize that it was that created that. And it's been running my life all my life. That's what they're saying. But powerful is the big one. And because like I said, when you can see it and you can name it, you can change it. We're empowered, and we're not like held hostage anymore by those reactions. And what does it do to us? We beat ourselves up, right? And then we go to self-loathing, another self-centered trait, right? We go to self-condemnation, another self-centered trait. Like we just I call it the city of limitation. We stay stuck. And it's time to break through that. And we can now, because we know how.
Tracy, we have a question here for you from David. It is, what's the first step to finding emotional clarity?
Yeah, to me, the first step is the self-assessment. You want to understand how your life experience has shaped your thinking, because what comes from that is you get to see your patterns. And in my book, I literally lay it all the way out. And then, you can go on I give you a special resource page where you can go and download all the tools, and you can work with the tools. Some people can do it. And when they do it by themselves, they get the insight and the clarity. Some people struggle, and I'll give you an example of how they struggle. When they're going through the work, we all seem to have a tendency, because we've either been in therapy, we've done other work, we start to sort of, I can't think of the right word, but we sort of generalize things. Like we'll just make a blanket statement when we're doing the self-assessment. When I'm working with women, I'll help them take that general statement that they made and help them really go deep with it. In other words, like what exactly happened, right? What exactly did they do? Just give it to me in 2 sentences. And then we get clarity right there. And then when we get over here, when we're doing the other work, and they start to see their patterns shape out, and they can start to see it, then they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I did that, right? And so they're seeing how the wound really affected them. And then from there, they have the clarity enough to change it. Because what we do is we name it. We name those traits. We name our fear, right? And we also uncover the belief and give it what it is. And then we work to create the opposite of it. So if mine was I don't belong, I had a whole worthiness thing. So I had to add I'm worthy in there, but not just I'm worthy. I'm worthy as I am, and I belong right here, right? Big difference than just taking a blanket I'm worthy affirmation and making it mine. And that has changed my life, doing it that way.
And this is the first time I've ever heard anybody talk about the womb.
Mm-hmm.
We've never talked about the womb with burnout. We've never talked about the scars or the triggers. We just say we're burnt out. We're stressed. We're overwhelmed.
Mhm.
But
And
not
it's
getting
them,
to
and
the
it's them.
right. And then it's just like it's not our issue, it's their problem. It's their and we're taking this on and we're doing this and we're doing and doing. And we just snap. And today we're talking about the womb, and I'm really glad that we're talking about that because you're helping me more than you realize, Tracy, right now. So thank you for that. We have a couple more questions I want to get out. We're almost at the end here. But I have a question from my venture show. How do you rebuild confidence after emotional burnout?
That's a great question. You know, what happens when you start shifting yourself is all of a sudden you have clarity around what you're not asking for. So, you know, what do we not give ourselves permission to want, right? That's a big question to answer. And when you answer when you know, I don't give myself permission to want what, right? So what happens is with the Aurora method, you start finding your voice because you're able to see how you've shut yourself off, how you've silenced yourself for so long that you start to learn how to say what you need. And now it's not just saying what you need, but meaning what you say. So say what you mean and mean what you say. Because what do? We say what we mean. Okay, I need this, and then we take it back. Oh no, it's okay. Like, you know, and what do? We keep imploding, right? So the way that you find confidence, and in the Aurora method, there's 4 phases: the self-assessment. Then we go to the emotional clarity part where we recognize our patterns. So that's to see it and name it. We create our own personalized, you know, affirmations, which is the change it, right? Which is the personalized mindfulness practice. And then we go to conscious action. And what does that look like? Well, think about all the fractures that we have in our relationships. How do we build bridges back? For some of us, it's finding our voice and speaking our truth, right? For many of us. For some of us, it's not engaging in a conflict, right? Because sometimes we're the starter of the fire, and then when they react, it's like this, right? We keep reacting to each other. What it is, it's learning how to acknowledge. And you know, I always say this because I was blessed that I was able to go to an event here in New Jersey where Oprah Winfrey was speaking, and she walks out on the stage and she says, acknowledgement is the greatest gift we can bring to every room. And I was in my journey of healing at that time, and I was still stuck in fractured relationships. I still was not confident with having a conversation that was truthful, you know, really letting someone know what I needed. And this is everywhere, with my family, with my spouse, at my job, everywhere. And I thought about that and I realized I have to acknowledge me first, right? What do I need? You know, and I have to acknowledge me. Like, I am working really hard at changing this stuff. And I have to do a kind and loving look back at me, right? And I have to claim that. So that was step 1 for confidence. But step 2 was, how do you have a conversation with someone that's disarming? So I'm going to give you a recent example happened today. So I'm getting my hair done for Miss Liz. And so I'm with my hairdresser. And she's telling me, or my hairstylist, that's what we call it now. So she's telling me a situation. She's with a group of moms, and she's beautiful. She's just inside and out. She's beautiful. And she's just got that natural beauty. She does yoga, so she's super fit. She looks gorgeous. And she's telling me about this mom group she's in and how she eats healthy because she's got some gut issues. But the mom makes fun of her and says, "Oh, I knew you were going to eat healthy," as she's eating French fries and chicken fingers. And now she's upset, right? Not that she's reacting, but she's like, you know, I don't think I want her to be my friend anymore. How rude of her to say that to me. And she's ready to cut that relationship out. But she loves the mom group. So she's read the book, she's done the work. So I said to her, what an amazing opportunity for an acknowledgement conversation. What would hold you back from having that? She's like, well, how would you do it with that? And I said, well, I would kindly acknowledge, you know, thank you for I've been working really hard on my health. Thank you for recognizing that, because it means a lot to me that you see that I'm committed to myself. Wow. She said, wow, I would sound really confident instead of what I'm feeling right now. I said, exactly. So acknowledgement conversations are about basically acknowledging if we've been in the struggle. I've been thinking about our relationship lately. I realize how unfair I've been, and breaking it and letting them out. And I realize I'm reacting a lot and it's unfair to us, and I'm going to work really hard to shift that. Right. And you did an esteemable thing. You just built esteem in yourself. I love the book, 52 Weeks of Esteemable Acts. Francis Ward. And it's like, if you do something esteemable, you build your own esteem. So to build that confidence, it's doing esteemable things, which to me is about acknowledgement. I hope that answered the question.
So Tracy, in the book, are they going to find these 4 phases?
Say again?
Or in your book, are they going to find the 4 phases?
Oh, it's all in there. I mean, I literally walk you, the way I wrote the book, I'll share with everyone. I want to be your guide, right? I don't regard myself as an expert because I'm not, I have lived experience. I fought really hard for 10 years to break through this. And I pieced together all the influences that showed me how to change. And then I just made it as sort of a step-by-step framework that you can follow. And I want to be that person who's sitting across the kitchen table with you as you're reading it and you're doing it, and you hear my voice as you read my words, and know that there's no judgment, because I share my own experiences and my reactions and the crazy things that I said and did, to know that you're not alone, right? And the book is just really designed to show that. And then for some people who are burned out, I know I was one of them. I would be like, oh my God, you want me to read a book? So as I wrote the book, the people helping me with the book said, Tracy, you should teach this. So now I'm doing 2 things. One is I can take you through it one-on-one. And the other is I'm doing it in groups. I'm currently planning my next date for my next group. I've been running 2 groups right now. I'm closing one out now next week. And then I'm working on another one that closes in 7 weeks, because it's 12 weeks. And what it's about is taking you through it step by step. So there's no homework. You're doing it it's a workshop style course. And when we're one-on-one, it's still workshop style. Let's just work together on this. Let's not give you more on your plate. You don't need it when you're burned out. I know me. I sign up for things and I'm like, what? I have to do homework? Like, you're not going to teach me? So I don't want to be that person. And so I want everyone to know I get it. I get burnout. And so that's really what I've done. And I'm in the process now of helping people who just want to do it through the book. I'm creating videos to bring it more to life. And I'll be offering that soon. But I'm just trying to help people. Like, the book to me is really, I look at it as the Bible, of how to do it. And for anyone who just doesn't have the time, and they can give at least permission to themselves to take 90 minutes, they could do it in a group setting, or 60 minutes, in a one-on-one setting.
Well, Tracy, if you'd like to leave your final message with my guest and read out your website for the audio listeners, and if you have any upcoming events or anything that you'd like to mention before we wrap up.
Yeah, what I would like to say is what was shaped can be reshaped. There is hope overcoming burnout. So many people don't think there is, but what was shaped can be reshaped. And I will be speaking. I'm going to a women's event in Jacksonville, Florida, on May 23rd. I'll be in Jacksonville. I'll be speaking in St. Louis in September. I'll be in Seattle in August. The event is called the Fearless Summit. It's specific for women. And so I'll be there. I'm doing a number of podcasts as well. But for women who are struggling right now, there is an event called Can't Manifest. It's in Sedona. You can Google that. And I'll be doing a 2-hour workshop on the Aurora Method there. So that's Can't Manifest in Sedona. And that is June 10th through 12th.
And if you'd just like to read out your website for all my audios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the website is tracydoyle.life.
Could you spell it out for all the listeners out there?
Oh, yeah. It's Tracy, Tracy, Doyle, DOYLE.life. And obviously the www. But if anyone, seriously, if you're struggling and you want to have a chat, I do have a site. It's just meetwithtracy.coach. So meet, MEET, with Tracy, TRACY.coach. Schedule a complimentary 30-minute. Let's talk about where you're at. Where are you at your wit's end, and where do you need help? with the struggle, and I can let you know if the Aurora Method would be appropriate, because I do not ever want to give the impression that I am the be all end all and that this is the be all end all. It helps, but sometimes some folks need deeper work, and sometimes if you've done work and you're still stuck, this is something that really might help break you through. So, I can assess that and let you know if this would be something that would be worthwhile for you.
And we have a final message here. Thank you for the inspiring discussion. Well, thank you, Dawn, for tuning in and supporting Miss Liz's Tea Time. I want to thank everybody for joining Miss Liz today and having this conversation with Tracy. And please share these tea times out there, because they do make a difference. You just never know who needs this picker upper or this book or Tracy's conversation today. So please share those tea times out there with the people that resonate with the conversations that Miss Liz brings to the table. Just going to do a quick wrap up, and then we'll see you guys all next week. Again, tonight's tea time will be rescheduled for a later date. Tracy, what a deeply and honest, powerful conversation. Tracy, thank you for reminding us that burnout is not weakness and healing is not failure. Sometimes the strongest things a person can do is pause long enough to recognize they are disconnected from themselves and choose to begin again. This afternoon, we were reminded that many people are carrying storms they never talk about. Pressure, pain, resentment, fear, self-doubt, all while trying to hold everything together for everyone else. Your story shows us that transformation is possible when we stop running from our wounds and begin listening to what they are trying to teach us. Through your work and the Aurora Method, we're giving people permission to move from survival mode into self-awareness, connection, and emotional peace. Here is something to carry with you after this tea time. What storm in your life keeps repeating? Because it's asking you to heal something deeper. Because healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about reconnecting with who you were before this world taught you to disconnect from yourself. Until our next cup, keep sharing, keep choosing awareness, choose healing, and remember, even after the darkest storm, clear skies can still appear. And I'll see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again.
Thank you.